I still remember the night I opened Mia's car door and saw it lying there, a protection that wasn't mine. My heart sank, my stomach twisted, and in that 1 second, everything I thought I knew about my marriage shattered. She couldn't even hide it properly. That little piece of evidence screamed louder than any confession ever could. My wife, the woman I trusted with my whole life, had been cheating on me right under my nose. Before I go on, let me just say this. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more shocking real-life stories that will leave you speechless. Your support means the world, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next in this story. I sat in the driver's seat, holding it in my hand, my pulse racing. Questions hit me like bullets. How long had this been going on? Who was he? Did everyone already know except me? The worst part was that she was acting so normal, smiling, talking, even pretending to be the perfect wife at family dinners. I realized then the betrayal wasn't just physical, it was a performance, a lie, a mockery of my trust. That night I didn't confront her right away. I forced myself to stay calm, though every bone in my body wanted to scream. Instead, I decided to play it differently. If she wanted to play games, then fine, I'd play smarter. Little did she know, that single mistake was about to unravel everything for her, and it would end with me walking away with not just freedom, but full revenge. The next morning, Mia came into the kitchen humming like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself coffee, and scrolled through her phone, texting non-stop. Every time her screen lit up, I caught a glimpse of her little smirk. She thought she was clever, hiding it behind work messages or friends checking in. But I knew better now. Every notification felt like a dagger. I decided not to ask questions, not to accuse her. If I did, she'd twist it, gaslight me, maybe even make me feel guilty for overthinking. Instead, I slipped into a role, calm, detached, but watchful. I started paying attention to the small things. What nights she stayed out late, what excuses she used, the names she mentioned casually but repeated too often. It was like peeling an onion. Every layer stung worse than the last, but it brought me closer to the rotten truth inside. She had no idea I'd already found proof, and that gave me the upper hand. Every "I love you" she whispered suddenly sounded fake. Every touch felt like betrayal. Yet I smiled back, because I had a bigger plan forming in my head. I quietly started gathering my own evidence. Checking phone bills, tracking late-night drives, noticing receipts she left in her purse. And with every detail, the image of her double life became clearer. She thought she was controlling the story, but in reality, I was the one scripting the ending. The funny thing is, when you know the truth, you stop being the victim. You start becoming the hunter. And trust me, Mia had no clue the trap was already being set. A week later, Mia had one of her so-called girls' nights. She dressed up more than usual, new dress, heels, and that perfume she only wore when she wanted to impress. She gave me the usual excuse, kissed me on the cheek, and walked out the door with her phone glued to her hand. But this time, I followed her. Not directly, I wasn't stupid. I let her get a head start, then used the small tracker I had slipped into her car days earlier. Watching that blinking dot on my screen move across the city felt surreal. Every turn confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't going anywhere near her friends. She stopped at a restaurant, one we'd been to before on anniversaries. That cut deep. I parked a block away and waited. When she finally walked inside, she wasn't alone. A man in a sharp suit was already waiting for her, standing up to kiss her like he owned her. My heart pounded, but strangely I wasn't shaking with anger. Instead, I felt focused. This was no longer just betrayal. It was evidence, ammunition, and she was handing it to me on a silver platter. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I stayed hidden, took photos, and recorded videos. Every laugh, every touch, every stolen kiss, it was all captured. Proof she could never deny. Proof that would destroy the little fantasy world she thought she had built. Driving back home, I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt powerful, because while Mia thought she was outsmarting me, she was really digging her own grave. The only question left was simple. When and how was I going to make her pay? I set the date carefully, A small weekend barbecue with a few close friends and our families, the kind of harmless get-together where Mia loved to shine. She walked in dressed like she always did for those nights, confident, flirty, expecting applause. I kept my calm, smiling as I greeted guests, while my phone sat in my pocket with every photo and video ready to show. I started with small things, a toast, a few stories, light laughter, letting everyone relax. Mia floated around the yard, touching arms, laughing, pretending nothing was wrong. That fake ease made my plan taste even better. I waited until the moment felt right. Dessert, when everyone had their phones out and the mood was soft. Then I asked everyone to look at the screen for a memory. The slideshow began like any other. Family photos, kids playing. Then the images changed. The first picture was her at the restaurant, his hand at her waist. Then the video, 2 people kissing, crystal clear. You could hear the gasp ripple through the group like a wave. Mia's face drained in seconds. She tried to laugh it off, but the next files played. Messages where she bragged about getting away with it, screenshots with times and dates, a hotel receipt. I had printed some copies and placed them on the coffee table so anyone who wanted to read could. People leaned in, reading the proofs with faces that moved from surprise to anger. One of her co-workers, who hadn't known, stood up and his voice shook. "I can't believe this." Another friend whispered, "We trusted you." The room that used to admire her now looked at her like she'd betrayed them all. That silence, the heavy kind that fills a room after a lie, was the exact sound I wanted. Mia scrambled, words tumbling out. "It's not what you think. Please, don't show them. We can fix this." But the facts kept speaking louder than her pleas. A neighbor I'd included in the guest list cleared his throat and said, "We all saw it." "How long has this been going on?" She faltered, then sputtered excuses that no one believed. Then I dropped the twist I'd saved for last. I revealed the bank transfers and the dates they matched the receipts. People read them and felt the betrayal as money trail, not just drama. Her man wasn't just a fling. He was a secret expense she'd hidden from our life. That detail turned private cheating into a public betrayal that hit wallets and trust. Her closest friend stood up slowly and walked toward the door. "I can't be part of this," she said, and left without another word. The way allies walked away was worse than any insult. It showed the social cost of her lies. Mia's eyes searched faces for support and found none. Her mother, who used to smile proudly at her, sat rigid, unable to meet her gaze. The neighbor who once complimented her manners now looked like a jury member reading a verdict. When the last guest left, Mia collapsed on the sofa, trembling. She begged me privately, voice raw, "Please don't ruin my life." I looked at the pile of evidence on the table and felt no joy, only a hard clarity. "You already ruined parts of it," I said. "I'm only making sure the truth gets seen." That night she didn't sleep. She watched me from the bedroom door like a hunted animal. I knew then that the next moves wouldn't be loud. They would be legal and final. I had evidence, witnesses, and a plan to protect our children and my future. She had thought she could hide behind charm and excuses. Instead, she'd built a house of cards inside our life, and I'd just knocked the table. The collapse had started, and there was no going back. By morning, her phone blew up with messages from work. By noon, HR had asked her to come in. I watched her read, watched color drain from her face as screenshots and receipts spread through her office. Her confident world shrank, not with one blow, but with a steady leak of proof. I didn't gloat. I moved. Quiet calls to a lawyer, copies of every document, and a meeting with the bank were already arranged. Evidence is useless without action, so I turned proof into pressure. The bank froze the joint card after I flagged. Suspicious hotel charges and transfers tied to dates she couldn't explain. She tried to swipe for a small thing at the store, and the card declined. The cashier's confused look felt like salt in an open wound. At work, her manager asked for explanations about missed shifts and unexplained expenses. The emails I'd sent the night before made it clear this wasn't rumor, it was paper and timestamps. Her projects were reassigned until HR finished their review. I filed for divorce papers that afternoon. The process was clinical, cold, no shouting, just ink and law. She begged me between calls, voice cracking. I listened, letting each plea weaken into the inevitable. Legal steps don't ask for forgiveness. They ask for proof. Then I filed for temporary custody of the kids and a clear parenting plan. I wanted stability for them, not drama. The court needed evidence of neglect and absence. The logs and timestamps showed it all. Her friends stopped answering. One by one, they distanced themselves when the receipts matched the dates they thought were safe to ignore. People who once clapped for her now crossed the street to avoid a glance. Social death is slow, but it stings louder than a single insult. She tried to bargain, offer money, promises, tears, but I had already recorded patterns, dates, and lies. Apologies on the phone didn't reverse bank freezes or HR reports. The law moves differently than gossip. A twist I hadn't advertised. I'd already transferred key business assets out of joint accounts into a trust months earlier. It wasn't revenge theater. It was protection. When papers were filed, she discovered those accounts were inaccessible to her. Panic set in deeper. Her employer called a formal meeting. Colleagues whispered. One associate confronted her in the hallway with a printout of messages. She stammered, but the facts cut through charm. Her reputation at work bled fast. Neighbors who once waved now pointedly ignored her. The landlord called about unpaid late fees linked to her secret meetings, evidence I'd quietly compiled and handed to him. Even the places she used to hide had become proof against her. She attempted one last public plea on social media, an emotional post about mistakes and forgiveness. It backfired. Screenshots of her private messages were shared under it within hours. The post became proof, not apology. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table with the papers spread like a map of her ruin. She looked small, hollowed out by consequences she had ignored for years. For the first time, she asked me, genuinely, "What do you want?" My answer was simple: security for my children and an end to lies. I wanted life rebuilt on truth, not theatrics. Legal closure would do that more than revenge could. Before the day ended, I sent one last message to a select group, family, a few trusted friends, explaining the facts and the legal steps I was taking. Clarity prevents rumor. It also builds allies. As she packed a single suitcase that night, the gravity of her losses finally landed. Money, job, friends, trust. One by one they were gone, or gone enough. The final blow hadn't landed yet, but the scaffolding was set. Tomorrow would be court. Tomorrow I'd present the timeline, the receipts, and the witnesses. The judge didn't need drama. He needed proof. And I had it all ready. She watched me as if hoping I'd relent. I didn't. Not because I wanted to destroy, but because I needed to protect what mattered. She had made her choices. The consequences were now inevitable. The last thing I did before sleep was lock the folder in a safe. Evidence rests until the gavel speaks. The next chapter would be public, legal, and final. The courthouse felt colder than usual that morning, though maybe it was just the weight of what was about to unfold. Mia walked in ahead of me, sunglasses hiding her face, but even behind them I saw fear. She wasn't the proud, arrogant woman who used to smirk at me when she thought I didn't know. She was shrinking, and everyone could see it. Inside the courtroom, I laid the folder on the table. Every page, every screenshot, every timestamp was in order. My lawyer didn't need drama, just facts. The judge skimmed through the evidence, and with every line his face grew harder. Photos of late-night dinners, hotel receipts, messages that left no room for excuses. It was all there. Mia tried to speak, but her lawyer advised silence. Silence couldn't save her. When the judge read aloud one of the messages where she mocked me for being too trusting, the room shifted. Whispers rippled through the benches. She stared at her lap, unable to meet anyone's eyes. That moment wasn't just legal, it was public humiliation in the rawest form. Then came the custody hearing. I presented records of her nights away, the neglect, the bank withdrawals that never went toward our children. The court listened. The court believed. Temporary custody was granted in my favor, pending final review. For the first time, Mia realized the kids she thought were automatic leverage were slipping away from her. As the session ended, I saw colleagues from her office waiting in the hall. They hadn't come for me. They had come for her. They read the news alerts, the leaked screenshots, the stories spreading like wildfire. One of them muttered, "I thought you were smarter than this, Mia." She didn't respond. She couldn't. The local paper covered it the next day. High-profile manager facing divorce amid scandal. Our small town wasn't kind to gossip. Once your name was out, your reputation never recovered. Friends unfollowed her. Family stopped calling. Her parents refused to pay her legal bills, ashamed to be dragged into headlines. Walking out of that courthouse, I didn't feel like a victor. I felt free. For the first time in years, the lies weren't weighing me down. The truth was heavy, yes, but it was mine, and it was finally out in the open. Mia called me that night, voice trembling, asking if we could fix things privately. I didn't answer. Some bridges don't burn. They collapse under the weight of betrayal. And she had built that collapse herself. The final hearing was still ahead, but the damage was already irreversible. She had lost her power, her image, her hold on me. What was left for her was only the echo of choices she had made long before this day, and I had one more card to play, one that would turn her world from broken to absolutely destroyed. The day of the final hearing, I walked into court calm, collected, while Mia looked like a ghost of herself. Her once perfect hair was messy. Her hands trembled as she clutched her phone like it was a lifeline. She didn't know yet, but the last piece of my plan was about to land harder than anything before. My lawyer stood and handed the judge one last folder, bank statements and company records. Inside were the proof of her secret accounts, the money she had siphoned from our joint savings, funneled into vacations and gifts for her lovers. I had traced every transfer, every luxury item, every hotel booking. The courtroom gasped when the amounts were read aloud. The judge's face was stone. "Mrs. Mia, do you deny these charges?" Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She had no defense. Her lawyer sat frozen, unable to spin lies against evidence this clear. That silence was her downfall. The ruling came like a hammer. Divorce granted immediately. Custody of the kids, mine, house, car, and savings all turned over after adjustments for her theft. Alimony? Denied. Instead, she was ordered to repay part of what she had stolen. From the queen of manipulation, she was reduced to someone who had nothing but debt and shame. But that wasn't the end. Remember her office colleagues who had already seen the headlines? That morning, her boss sent a representative to court. They were there with papers. Mia was officially terminated. Her career, her status, her entire carefully curated image collapsed in one strike. She stared at the document, lips trembling, while whispers filled the room. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. They asked her questions she couldn't answer, cameras flashing, microphones in her face. For years she had thrived on attention, but this wasn't admiration, this was exposure. She shoved past them, running to her car, but even there she wasn't safe. Online, her name was trending. Screenshots of her messages had gone viral. She wasn't just humiliated in court, she was humiliated everywhere. As I stood on the steps, holding the custody papers in my hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. Revenge wasn't just about her losing, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, my freedom. And I had done that. That night, Mia called me again. Her voice was broken, barely recognizable. "Please, can we talk?" she whispered. I ended the call without saying a word. She had talked enough in hotel rooms and late-night texts. Now she could talk to her empty apartment and her regret. The final blow had landed. Mia wasn't just defeated, she was destroyed. But I wasn't done yet. One last move remained. One final twist that would seal her fate forever. When the court papers were final and the reporters left, I thought the story was over. But I had one last move that would make sure Mia never rebuilt the life she'd burned. I didn't do it out of cruelty. I did it so the truth stayed true, and so our children never wondered why their world changed. I had quietly set up a trust for them months earlier, feeding it bit by bit from savings and side contracts I never mentioned. While she was busy lying and spending, I had been building something real and permanent for our kids. That trust was now untouchable and would guarantee their future no lawyer could buy back. Next, I handed a sealed packet to a journalist I trusted. It contained the timeline, the receipts, the audio clips, everything laid out so clearly even the best liar couldn't spin it. It ran as an in-depth piece the next week. No sensational shouting, just facts, dates, and the pattern of deceit. The town read it, the company read it, and anyone who had once whispered in her ear finally saw the whole map. Then I called the landlords, the banks, and HR, not to gloat, but to make sure the loose ends were tied. The hotel where she'd slipped money into another life closed the account she used. Her secret number was disconnected. People who had enabled her backed away once they saw the paper trail. She had burned bridges without a map out. A small, unexpected twist. One of her lovers tried to reach me in anger, threatening to make things worse. I handed his name to the same journalist, and the truth about his own lies came out. He lost more than he thought he could. Watching those who used her as a game face consequences too was a strange kind of relief. The web of lies collapsed inward. I also took care of the quiet things. I changed passwords, arranged therapy for the kids, and made sure schools and coaches knew the custody plan. Stability mattered more than headlines. Revenge felt empty if our children paid the cost. People began to stop staring and start asking how I'd kept my calm for so long. The answer was simple. I wasn't weak, I was patient. While everyone underestimated me, I prepared. Hidden effort turned into a clean result. That contrast, him silent and small, now steady and secure, was the real change. Mia tried one more time to get sympathy from mutual friends, but the timeline did its work. Sympathy needs plausible doubt. There was none left. Her apologies sounded like rehearsed lines in a play no one wanted to see again. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt a life that was quiet and honest. I went back to work, and people who had mocked me before now treated me with a cautious respect. Contracts I had been waiting on finally came through because I had cleared the mess that used to shadow my professional life. Life didn't explode into success overnight, but it grew, steady, deserved. Every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of Mia on her sparse social posts. Short captions, fewer friends, no photos with the kids. It wasn't pleasure that I felt. It was confirmation that the consequences were real and complete. She had choices once. Now she faced the hard work of rebuilding alone. The last twist that mattered to me. When the dust settled, a neighbor I barely knew knocked on my door with a small envelope. Inside was a note from someone Mia had hurt long ago, a simple thank you. They said I'd saved their family from more pain by making the truth public. That small validation mattered more than the headlines. I never wanted to be the man who lives on revenge. The truth is, the hardest victory was learning to sleep at night again without wondering what she might be hiding. The legal wins and the public fallout were tools, but peace was the prize. At the final meeting about the kids' schedules, Mia asked if we could keep things civil for their sake. I agreed, not because I forgave her easily, but because the children deserved normalcy. That calm agreement felt like a final, quiet victory, one that didn't need applause. So I closed the door on that chapter. The house sold, the trust stood, the kids had routine, and I had cleared the slate. People who had underestimated me before now knew I had been building while they laughed. That before and after was the clearest revenge of all. If there's one thing I want anyone watching to take away, it's this. When someone betrays you, your best power is not a loud revenge, it's the proof, the plan. and the patience to make sure the truth changes what matters. I reclaimed my life, and in doing so, I gave my children a future that couldn't be stolen again.